My name is Paula Mirabal. I am from Taos Pueblo, New Mexico. My village is the northernmost, longest occupied pueblo of that state. We've been there for as long as I can remember. I mean, you know. We are called the Red Willow people. And yeah, my grandmother was Nettie Lujan. My grandfather was Alfred Lujan. And that's where I'm from.
Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, my name is Urie Ridgeway. I'm with the Nanticoke Lenni-Lenape tribal nation out of Bridgeton, New Jersey. My community, we're very fortunate. We come from 3 communities, one community in Bridgeton, New Jersey, one community in Cheswell, Delaware, and another one out of Millsboro, Delaware. And communities, I say we're fortunate because we still live in our traditional homelands. Our families, we managed to stick around, stay together. We had rules in our communities that were, pretty simple, where if you're not from our community, you don't belong there and you have to leave. And that's how we were able to keep our bloodlines. I like to say we went back and forth and stole each other's women, but that's
It's another story.
Yeah, it's another story. And we continue to exist today, but in the process, we lost a lot of our language, a lot of our culture. We had to learn, rethink and relearn who we were, and so we could adjust and maintain our communities. But we're thriving, and we're still exist here. Yes, there are still natives that live in New Jersey.
Yay.
We are still here. We are still Lenape people living on our traditional ancestral land, which many communities can not say that.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll come up soon, but you sent me some photos of the bodies of water near your land. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Okay, where I'm from, in Cumberland County, New Jersey, my home itself and our tribal land, which is about a mile from my house, we live right off the Cohansey River. The Cohansey River is named after Chief Cohanzic, one of the chiefs of the people that sold the lands in 1688 was when our lands were traded off between the Cohansey River and the Morris River. And you might want to pronounce it Maurice River. We pronounce it Morris River in southern New Jersey. And then we're also a stone throw away from the Delaware Bay. So we actually have to come north just to cross the Delaware Memorial Bridge to get out of New Jersey. So we're that far south. And those lands were traditionally our homelands. And those are the main bodies of water that reside around us, that we have a thriving community. So the Delaware Bay being, goodness, if you go across the river, across the bay from my home, is where you find our second community, the Cheswell community. They're just, Dad just told me where they would take the boats back and forth and have picnics to meet the rest of the family. And of course, he tells a story how they would get together and the boats would come across and they'll be in the water fighting before they even got the boats docked. But that was part of it. Yes, we love each other. And so our communities, they would go back and forth, and we use that. We navigate across those waterways just to visit our families. And again, the Millsboro community, just as you go towards Lewis, Delaware, Rehoboth Beach, that's where the Millsboro community is from, right on Indian River. You go through our history. They speak of one of the families, the Mosley family, that came from. They resided in Cape May area traditionally, and then when the settlers and stuff came in and started closing in onto them, they took the whole community, packed them in canoes, paddled across the Delaware Bay over to Indian River to live with the natives and the Nanticoke people that were living on Indian River. So that's what's happening around us with those bodies of water.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Paula, you have
We have what we call Ojea. It's Blue Lake. It sits in the mountain of Wheeler Peak, 14,000 miles elevation. That's where our water comes from, that runs through the middle of our village. The water from the lake comes from the underground aquifers. So it travels from that point, and then there's a few other lakes that follow that. But the river that we use for drinking and our farming comes from that river, comes from that lake, and that water is so crisp. Just, I don't know, it tastes so really, it's sweet. I don't know, because it doesn't, there are no other rivers. I mean, we have the Rio Grande that runs near it. We also have the Animas that comes from the north, but our source of water comes from that lake. And so, creator willing, it doesn't get affected in any way, but it runs through the center of our village. And we've been occupying that space for millennia, and we do an annual pilgrimage to that lake to reacquaint ourselves, ground ourselves. And we don't speak any English while we're there. We speak just our language. It's not written, so we share all our stories in that space. We're there for 3 days, and we don't really, from the stories that I remember, planes never used to fly over. Now when we're up there, you can see the planes, the jet streams that travel along there. But our lake is just restricted for us, tribal members only. We occupy about 50,000 acres of land only. That's our reservation. And within that space, we have the mountains, we have foothills, and it stopped. I'm there. Sorry. It's just a beautiful place. We have a lot of stories that go with how we got there. I was going somewhere with that, but it's just an amazing space. The water is just, it's just beautiful.
So-
And,
We have two different
That's what I wanted to-
contradicting
yeah,
worlds.
exactly.
I
You're
wanted to ask
12,000
you.
feet up,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we're right at
Yeah.
sea
Right at-
level.
yeah.
You have the lakes, we have the rivers. It's
Yeah.
just
They have
two
50,000,
opposites.
they have 50,000
And
acres.
we have 50. So,
yeah,
Right,
we
but-
have
But
yeah.
the significance isn't any different, or, it's not, right?
Exactly, yes.
And so the history of your people and what you've been through, it's so different from region
Yeah.
to region. I mean, the East Coast Native people have had a completely different experience than the Native people of the Southwest.
So at
And
one
it's so
point in time,
reflective here.
yeah, so at one point in time, we lost all of it. All of that land, that's where I was going with this. The Forest Service, U.S. Forest Service, just planted a little cubby, kind of like a structure, and said, this is ours now. And so they took over all of that, which included the lakes that are up there. And that happened in 1906. And from that point on, we fought and fought and fought. All the elders of my community, and my grandmother was a part of that, fought to get the land back, along with the use of that lake, to make it just for us. And it was a constant battle. My grandmother was always talking about, we have to go to the courthouse. We have to go to DC. We have to fight for this. And if one thing that Nixon did that was good was that he gave us back our land in 1970, all of it. Yeah. So we were able to, without pay, because they wanted to pay us for that land, and it was our tribal leaders said, we can't, what are we gonna do with that money? When the land is actually what keeps us alive. Our land is how we survive. We hunt, we gather, we grow. That's our livelihood. That's our life. That's our life ways. That's our blood. And we got it back in 1970.
Can you speak to your experience and your people's experience with getting land back and what you're doing now to try to...
Oh, goodness.
in 30 minutes or less?
We had a different way of approaching things. Like I said, with our land, Chief Kohanzi and Mahoxie, they they signed away our land and land deeds in, like I said, 1688. Long before this country was even formed. That's when they gave away. That's when they gave away our lands. They set aside lands for us, for the what they call Unagastago people, or that's just a subset of the Lenape. They set aside lands for them, and there's a town called Dividing Creek, which is, of course, well, a creek. And from the south side of that creek, that was considered the Indian territory, and the other side was for those that were during their hay field, their salt hay fields, and all the farmers and stuff that were coming in. And so those lands were separated at that point in time. And since then, goodness, we've pretty much sold off our lands. But then what took place was you had people like my wife's great-grandfather, she was just told this story recently about how he had pretty much nothing. But he got on the fishing boats and the clamming boats, and he went out and started fishing and clamming those rivers and the streams and the oceans. And he came back and he said he had no shoes, just beat up clothing. Well, he was able to buy his first piece of land. And then from that, he went out and kept doing this, and he bought another piece of land.
Wow.
Then he purchased another piece of land. Before you know it, he had enough where he was able to finance other tribal people.
Nice.
From the community. They can go to him, and he would sell land and get land for them. And before you knew it, we had that land base back. In Millsboro, there was the land base that we had in Cheswell, where we didn't grow up on a reservation or anything like this, but when you walk through our communities, I said community, when you walk through our communities, this house was family. The next house, this was my aunt's house. The next house, this is my grandparents' house. The next house, that's my cousin's house. Oh, that's my great uncle's house. And it was, every house was like that. You could not walk down the street and anybody that was in there we were all related. Mm-hmm. And so we actually purchased the majority of our land back. And then with our community in New Jersey, the same thing. I reside in New Jersey. I sit on tribal council in New Jersey. However, my name Ridgeway originates in the Millsboro community. My mother and father's families are from the Cheswell community, but I was born and raised in the New Jersey community. So that shows you how we're connected. And with that, we were able to purchase a land. We had someone non-native who said, something, we want to do something back for the native community. And so when we pass away, we're signing our house over to you.
Wow.
So they signed their house over to us, and we were able to take their house, sell their house, and with some of those proceeds, we were actually able to put up a building on the land that we had purchased in '93. We bought 28 acres in '93 with just money we saved up from our community. Then after that, more recently, through tribal businesses, we were able to purchase an additional 25 acres right across the street. So we have a 50-acre land base that we're which is our community center, our community gardens. We have our ceremonial grounds, repatriation. We do everything right there on those lands that we have, and through hard work between ourselves. And I want to get into the political aspect where years ago where we tried to purchase land and we had all this money there for us, and then a certain president of today blocked all of our funding from us.
Wow.
And so we could no longer purchase that land. So this is what we had. We had to purchase, and we're in the process of still purchasing our lands back. So there have been a few lawsuits where they tried to sue the state. Everything's been thrown out of court.
Yeah.
They said that everything was taken legally from the state of New Jersey, from the Lenape people. They signed everything over legally. This is the theory.
The theory.
The theory, yes. The theory.
This is what we've been called.
Yes, we're in the process. We actually purchased our land back, and so that's the way we are today. So I said, completely different worlds we have here.
Yeah.
But one thing in common, we all lost our land that we need back, that we want back, that we have
It's our
that connection
grounding.
to. Yes.
Yeah, it's our grounding.
Without it, you don't exist.
Exactly.
Right, you said something about we need our land, otherwise where would we gather?
Yes.
Can you speak to that a little bit? And then Paula, can you follow suit?
I mean, just think about this. I'll talk about our land, and that way, I think I can relate it so that everyone can understand it. You know, everybody here, we have mothers, correct? Everybody here, we've had a mother in our lives. And with that, you would do anything you could to help make sure your mother is protected. You know, if your mother needed food, what you're going to do, you're going to go out and you're going to get her some food. She needs some blankets to stay warm, you're going to get her blankets. If someone approached her to attack her, you're going to defend your mother. Well, you know, everybody hears a story of Mother Earth, and that's true in our language. We call it, it's our Mother Earth that we have. And the term in our language is haki, is that the earth. Well, actually, it's called the body, because we believe the Mother Earth is a being, it's a living entity, it's a spirit, in our Manitou, you might want to say, it's a living spirit, and haki is the body of that spirit, and that's your Mother Earth. That's the spirit's body itself. But the thing is, there's no difference between the term for the earth that we have as a body, and haki is also our body, because we are one and the same. And just like the mothers that we have, I'm sure there's not anyone here that would not stand up to protect and to defend and to care for your birth mother. And us as Native people, we have that same internal feelings where that is our birth mother. You know, we have their mothers that we, you know, see every day. And then we have the earth that is our mother as well. And we care for her the same as we would. And without her, we do not have that life.
Exist.
Yes.
So on that, when you were growing up in your community, how were you taught? I mean, is this something you're born with this a certain kind of knowledge and a reverence or honoring Mother Earth, right? So can you talk a little bit about your tribal traditions and about protecting your land and water?
So we have, you know, we're born into it. Our first language is Tiwa, and the language is what keeps us tied to where we are. Everything that we talk about is through the language that connects us. It's like all the words, the sounds that are made are like veins that connect to who we are as people. And with that comes with the knowledge of how we came to be where we're at. Coming together is the most amazing thing. All my aunts, grandmothers, it's like a hen house. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. But we talk just in our language, and those are our origins to the lake that we go to the buildings that we live in, to the land that we live on, to the earth that we plant in. I mean, everything is connected to us. Without it, like you're saying, we wouldn't be there. I mean, we wouldn't have, so language is actually like the biggest connector. And unfortunately, as we move forward, you know, we've evolved and we've, you know, become connected with the outside world. My children don't know the language. They chose not to speak the language, which means it ends with me if I don't, you know, if I'm praying that my daughter has a baby, that I could speak to the baby in our language, which will continue that line. But in all of what we do, that is the connecting line, is our language. Then within our community, we have a governing system where we have the governor of the village, and then we have a war chief. And the war chief is him and his group. They protect the land. They travel the boundary of all the land and make sure that we don't have any trespassers. Throughout our history, we have had trespassers who have it's crazy because everybody is drawn to the Taos hum. I don't know where that comes from, but they come, and because our land is sacred, they want to perform different crazy things like sweats that they don't know anything about, or we've had a few people who have come and they want to die on our lands because it's sacred, and they believe that they should be allowed to do that there. We've had some really strange things that have happened on our land, but with all of our elders and all of our guides, we are able to just keep the flow within our village going, and we still do come together for feast days. We come together for good and bad things, funerals, weddings, that kind of thing. And we always are cooking. That's how I love to cook. Oh my God, that's like
food.
Exactly. We have all of these traditional foods that we cook, and within our communities we have farmlands, and we have corn, 3 kinds of corn: white, blue, and yellow. And then we also grow wheat and alfalfa we have growing. And so all of those small things is part of how we come together and share what we have. And part of that, it's the language that really connects us.
How about like I know for us in our creation story, you go back to our creation story and the connection with the land, you had, there was a great flood that took place, and there was this turtle's back, and from that turtle's back grew a cedar tree, and from the cedar tree came out the first man. But then the cedar tree reached around and it touched the ground, it touched the earth, and from that came the first woman. So the first woman that came to us was born of the earth, even. So that's even part of that connection, and that's why our women are so connected with the earth, and they cared for the children, they cared for the families, and cared for the land, maintained from a traditional perspective. That's the way we went away. I don't know if it was similar in yours.
No, ours is a little bit different. Yeah. But our men know that without us, they couldn't do what they do.
Yeah. That's the same with our community. without our women,
because we're also, we have kind of threefold style traditions. We have the imposition of Catholicism, and then we have, because we are the furthest northern Pueblo in New Mexico, we were also on like the plains paths. So we have plains traditions, we have beadwork, we have the double braids, we have that tradition also a part of our community, so we do a powwow. And then we also have our Pueblo lifeways traditions that aren't necessarily public. Mm-hmm. So we've been able to retain all of that from the public, so that's where I'm from. That's the mountain there. And that's where our water comes from, up that way. And that's the north side of the village. My grandmother's house is on the south side, across the river. And that water is so good. If you ever come up, I wish you guys could taste it. It's so
But
good.
Get permission first.
Yes, you have to. And anything that you do in any of our communities, permission it's like the first thing. Yeah.
So we have about 5 minutes left for the panel. So I'd like to just ask each of you it went fast, right?
Yeah, perfect.
What the environmental impact has been on your communities, and what you're working on to protect your own lands and waters and moving into the future.
Okay, here, let you start off.
Oh, okay. So because we are originally an agricultural community, we really try to make sure that our waterways that come down, we make sure that all of the rivers are clean of garbage or of any overgrowth or anything. We always, we have a group of people that always do that, keep that clean, the waterways clean. And part of that is being able to grow our own corn, because we use that for everything that we do within our community. Our tribal ways, our comings together and our kivas, all of that, we use the corn. And so from that, then we also have our own farm called Red Willow Farms, and we produce a lot of that. Because we live close to a town called Taos, we bartered a lot of the time with the food that we grew with the town of Taos for meats, for any other kind of subsistence that we needed. So we're always aware of our water, big time. When it goes low, we put restrictions on it, because you don't want to drink the water when it's too low. And I mean, it's just this cycle that we go through every year, maintaining that water. I mean, that's like also a very important piece to who we are.
For us, well, we live in New Jersey, so there's limited access to our waterways. We use a lot of the public ramps, the bay side. I live on the bay side. Like I said, we're stone throw from the Delaware Bay, no more than 4 miles from the bay, where we fish, we crab. My family was some of the last families to drive oyster steaks inside the bay. You know, my grandfather's generation, make sure they're cut to a certain length. My dad would tell me, and making their own fishing nets, going out fishing. But and today, it's very hard for us to even gain access to the waterways, because everything's owned by non-tribal members and non-community. So if you're trying to get access, you need special permissions, you need special permits to get to those waterways. However, we still fight for and know of a lot of our sacred areas, burials, where the remains and things are at. So if there's development that's coming in the area, we're right there on top of that to see to it that those lands stay protected. And we try to do the best we can. Or if we might take canoe trips down some of our streamways where we know there are burials and or remains, then we stop to make sure we put those tobacco downs and maybe clean up the area, or see if we see, just to keep an eye on different things. We don't have much say as far as being able to directly protect a lot of things, just because we don't own those. Everything's owned besides us. But we're right there to try to be sure that nothing damages those areas.
Yeah.
We have agreements with the state of New Jersey that, like PSE&G, telephone companies, whenever they're having new developments coming in, if they're putting up cell towers, if they're putting up anything, those plans have to come to our community first.
Wow.
So they say, hey, do you have anything in this area that's of significance besides the land itself? Is there anything of here that's of significance that we should be known of, or that we need to protect? And those are sent to our tribal councils, and we review those before we send them back for approvals. Yeah, so that's an agreement that we have to help protect some of the sites.
Yeah, even for us, the airspace. We have, like, within the area, they want to put up an airport. We can sign a contract, an agreement for them not to fly over our lands in any direction. They have to go around us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because what's happened is our village, because of its age, we're on the UNESCO World Heritage. And so they have to follow those guidelines as well, because of how old they are, the buildings, and structurally, the vibrations from the planes.
Yeah.
So that
Shake
helps.
them. Yeah, so it helps
That's great.
to keep us together.
Nice.
Yeah. So I know the waterways too, because the water comes from our village and then it goes into the town of Taos. And so we're having this water battle right now. Who actually owns the water? Nobody owns the water, right? But we have this, because even Taos is an agricultural community, and so they also created all of these ditches and the acequias that take the water down that way. But
I heard a documentary recently. It was Brazil. All the water's privately owned.
How do you do that?
It's all
I mean, it's
private-
constantly
it's all
flowing. How
private-
do you own? I mean, that doesn't make sense to me.
I can't grasp.
all.
I can't grasp it myself.
Yeah.
But the water's privately owned, where the only water you have is you have rations that would come in on the trucks, and that's where you get your water at for your home for that week. And
Wow.
you pray that it doesn't come late or you don't run out sooner. If you dig a well, usually the wells go dry. You have to have special permission to use or even tap into the water for your home or for your crops, even to just bathe with. So that's.
Yeah. I was just like, how do you?
If that ever happens, really, let's fight that.
Yeah. Like our ditches, the water. How do you own a mile of water when it's constantly flowing?
Right, it's moving.
You know, it doesn't make any sense.
It has its own life, it's just.
Well, we're going to need to wrap up, but do you have any final comments? And then I'd like to show 2 videos from the Warrior Project to wrap up this section.
Do you have any questions, anybody?
How big are your communities? How many people?
We are about 22,000.
And we're about 2,000. Maybe on the high side.
Right.
Is that number being constant?
Um,
Growing or
it's,
growing, or is it
I don't think it's grown because it kind of matches out our elders passing on and then children being born, so it kind of we maintain. And we're not all full-blood Taos, because when the boarding school era happened, you know, it broke down our families, and we were then introduced to other tribal members, other tribal peoples, and mixed. So I'm a quarter Navajo, and that's from my dad's side.
Actually, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Paula, I wanted to know, you were talking about the children and language. Do you have a school on Taos Pueblo, or do the kids go to school in Taos? And how does that?
Both, actually. We have our own federally run, it's called Taos Day School, and we're able to manage how it's run. So there was I don't know if it was a grant that was given at one time for revitalizing our language. So we were able to teach our young ones, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, our language in the classroom, along with English. So it was set up so that part of the day was all in our language, and then the rest of the day was in English. So yeah, and then once they get to the 8th grade, they transition their high school into the town of Taos.
There was one more question here, and then we have to move on to our other programming.
Is that on your place, is there a place called Skytown, or first, where is that?
That's Acoma Pueblo.
There'll be time after the program to ask and
Okay,
mingle and
yeah.
talk. So I'd just to end this portion of the program, we're going to show 2 videos. They're 2 short videos from the Warrior Project. I keep saying the Warrior Program today. The Warrior Project, and then we'll move on to the next part of our program. So thank you, Urie. Thank you so much. Thank you, Paula. It was wonderful.
I don't mind your odd behavior. It's the very thing I love. If you were an ice cream flavor,
Mom.
Our outdoor kitchen. So they love it.
nation sees you like a painting by Van Gogh. Starry nights and bright sunflowers follow you where you may go. Oh, I've loved you from the start. In every
I want you to just really think about that.
and more each passing day.
amazing.
You're a butterfly held captive, small and safe in your cocoon. Go on, you can take your time. Time is said to heal all wounds. Oh, I've loved you from the start, in every single way, and more each passing day. You are brighter than stars. It's not about your scar.
Lift up the umbrella a little higher so I can get the board.
All about your heart.
Let's just take one. I'll show you.
Like a mystery without a clue. There is no me if I cannot have you. Oh, I loved you from.
We always were raised with an understanding of Mother Earth and how we need to treat her right in order to stay here.
We also know that all life is precious and that you only really have one chance and that you can't just go around destroying life.
You know?
It was caused by a silverware factory, I believe, and then it just got worse by people just littering. And so everybody plays a part, whether it's good or bad. If you're the one littering, it can affect it. If you're the one managing this company, you affect it. Or if you're the one cleaning the pond, you affect it.
Aho dande ho, 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 aho dande ho.
And so the land has always been something really important to us. We've gone crabbing here before, and there's always people that live here now and don't want us here crabbing, even though that's our traditional way. And so there's definitely a big
Barrier.
between us and the land today.
There's